Hello everyone. My name is Nobu Kuroda and I am a professor at the University of Tsukuba. My specialty is cultural landscapes, and my research field is Shirakawa-go, the World Heritage Site. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present and introduce Shirakawa-go in Japan. Because my Japanese accent is terrible, I will give a presentation with a computer voice. I will make presentation about nature-culture linkage in Shirakawa-go, changes caused by Coronal disaster. Today I present the 5 contents you see. First, I would like to provide a brief overview of Shirakawa-mura. This is an unusual statement issued in May 2020 by the leaders of Shirakawa Village and 2 other Hida area municipalities. It became a national topic of conversation when they made the unusual request that people not travel during Japan's major holidays, as the entire Hida region would be closed. Today I would like to talk about the changes caused by the corona in Shirakawa Village. Shirakawa Village is located in the mountainous region of Gifu Prefecture in the middle of Japan. It is also famous for its abundant snowfall, but recently there seems to be less due to global warming. Population decline is a major issue throughout Japan. The decline is particularly severe in mountainous areas such as Shirakawa Village. The population has decreased by 2/3 over the past 50 years. The population as of last month is 1,510, and 30% of the population is over 60 years old. Shirakawa Village is world famous for its beautiful Gasho-style architecture. These houses with a thatched gabled roof were built between the early 19th and early 20th centuries. In 1995, Obamachi Village was inscribed as a World Heritage Site. It was recognized as WH Site due to the value as rare examples of Gasho-style houses, a unique farmhouse style that makes use of highly rational structural systems evolved to adapt to the natural environment and site-specific social and economic circumstances. There are rich linkages between nature and culture in Shirakawa-go. I would like to talk about the kaya for thatch used for roofs. An example. Kaya is a kind of Miscanthus sinensis. They are grown in Kayaba Field in the mountains. There are 2 types of kaya. The thin and small one on the left is a traditional species called kariyasu, and the thicker one on the right is a common species called Suzuki. Can you see the difference between kariyasu and Suzuki? Inside of kariyasu is hollow, and inside of Suzuki is not. Thus, traditional kariyasu drains water much better than common Suzuki. For this reason, roofs thatched with kariyasu last for 50 to 60 years, but those with Suzuki last only for 30 to 40 years. People used to use traditional kariyasu. Because kariyasu grows only in higher mountain areas and needs more maintenance than Suzuki, materials for roofs have changed from traditional kariyasu to Suzuki. This photo is a traditional field of kariyasu in Gokuyama area, not Shirakawa-go. There are few kariyasu field in Shirakawa-go. The reason is that it is no longer possible to maintain the thatch fields due to the aging of the population and other factors. Currently, most of the thatch in Shirakawa-go is purchased from Shizuoka Prefecture and neighboring municipalities and is not self-sufficient. This photo shows the warehouse where the purchased thatch is stored. Next, I will briefly introduce the history of conservation by the residents of Shirakawa-go. This photo was taken in 1975. After the end of World War II, young men who had been at war returned to the village. At that time, they were also raising beef cattle in the village. The big question for the young people was how to maintain industry in the village in the future. One resident looked back on the old days and said, at that time, the goal was not to protect cultural assets or to pass on culture, but to find a way to make a living in the village. From 1970s, villages deep in the mountains have been depopulated. The village of Kasura, pictured in the photo, used to be home to 8 families for more than several hundreds years, but all residents decided to leave the village due to the harsh winter conditions. In Ogamachi village, the residents initiated conservation activities as early as the 1970s. They established an organization that protects the natural environment in Ogamachi village. It was difficult for residents to understand the idea of preserving the old houses they were living in at that time, but the younger generations assembled people again and again until everyone was convinced and agreed. They established a charter derived from the full will of all residents. The charter states that, we, not only the owners of gasho-style houses but also all other residents must make an effort to protect our beautiful village and natural environment. Up until today, this organization has made efforts towards conservation most effectively. Every month, members of the organization hold discussions on the advisability of modifications. In 2022, Nodai Shinji became the 8th chairman of the organization. As a result of its decision to preserve the gasho-style houses, in 1976 Ogamachi village was selected a preservation districts for groups of traditional buildings, which is one of the national cultural properties. In Ogamachi village, residents, the local government and a foundation cooperate closely to conserve gasho-style houses and the natural environment. Ogamachi village is very small and residents know each other well. Most issues concerning conservation appear solicitous with each resident's personal situation. I will introduce about the foundation later. I will now discuss the changes caused by the Coronal disaster. There were merits and demerits unique to Shirakawa village as the corona spread. Since there is only a small clinic and cannot deal with coronavirus, the fear of infection among residents was greater than in other areas. On the other hand, since there are few residents, vaccination of all residents has progressed at an early stage in Japan, and it has been taken up in the national news. As a result, there were no cases of infection until April 2021. This picture shows the traditional way of roofing a gasho-style houses. Residents help each other to thatch the roof and it is called yui. Thanks to the cooperation of the residents, they were able to thatch the roof on one side in one day. For 3 years from 2020, no traditional roofing was done. During this time, the roofs were thatched by thatching company in the village. Before Corona disaster, volunteers from outside of the village also cut thatch together. After Corona, this has continued only for village residents. Thatch has been purchased from outside the region as I talked before. Last year, a British-made thatch cutter was purchased by the foundation with the aim of achieving self-sufficiency in thatch. The number of tourists, which had been increasing with the inscription of the World Heritage Site and the opening of the highway, has dropped by 83% at a stroke, 2.1 million in 2019, but 380,000 in 2021. Shirakawa-go had seen a rapid increase in foreign tourists since 2016. The most important factor in the decline due to Corona is the drop in the share of international tourists from 50% to 10%. Before Corona disaster, about half of the tourists in Shirakawa-go were from foreign countries, and even when walking around the village, Taiwanese and Chinese were heard more often than Japanese. This is a 2020 photo. No one walked in the village. It was the first time I had ever seen a village so empty of people. When a friend villagers found out me, coming from Tokyo area, she stepped back a few meters and talked to me fearfully. In a small village in a mountainous area where medical care is fragile, the risk of infection is high, and I think there was a great deal of fear and surveillance among the villagers. Each time several waves of infection lessened, the tourists gradually returned. Since they could not go abroad, the visitors came from nearby schools for excursions, trips, and group travelers who could participate only if they had been vaccinated. The hardships of a guest house says that she has changed the number of guests to be limited to 2 groups per day. It takes 2 hours 30 minutes to finish ozone disinfection of the bedding and other items used by the guests in one room. Afterwards, she will start the ventilation cleanup. This Gasho-style house is her guest house. She says she will continue to do her best until the end of Corona, and she can't tell me how tough this has been. The Foundation for the Protection of Gasho-style Houses in the World Heritage Site is an effective and active pro-conservation organization in Ogamachi Village. Funds are generated from the parking fees charged to tourists, and are received from local governments. This foundation repairs buildings in World Heritage Area, restores abandoned rice fields, and offers a subsidy for the use of traditional snow shades. Corona has changed the use of the parking lot operated by the foundation from groups coming in large buses to individual visitors in their own cars. Keita Matsumoto, who is a cultural heritage officer in local government, says that the most significant problem has been the sharp decline in cooperation payments. Many houses cannot be repaired as required due to lack of financial resources. In Shirakawa-go, there have been some new developments from this period of stagnation in the tourism industry. In April 2020, the hotel in the area was the first to move. The number of tourists decreased to 0, and they started crowdfunding for the survival of the hotel. Surprisingly, there was a donation of 5.9 million yen, about twice as much as the target amount of 3 million yen. I think that the donation was made by stakeholders living outside Shirakawa village. The importance of increasing the exchange population became clear. Furusato tax payment is a system of paying taxes to a place other than your own municipality. The purpose of this system is to raise tax revenue in rural areas with small populations. 2021 tax payment in Shirakawa village was 3 times higher than that in 2020. The reason for this is that the village has devised a special gift to be given back to taxpayers, such as rice grown by local elementary and junior high school students. Due to the danger of cluster infections, activities with a large number of people are not possible, so efforts have been made to target a small number of people. This is an internship initiative in which university students stay for a long period of time and work while living in the village. This is only possible because university classes are now online. The project will start in 2021 and will be in its 3rd year this year. There were also migrants and young people returning to the village from the city. Some young people from Shirakawa-go who had been working in the city returned to the village with their families because telework became possible. The young people who started living in the village in this way are developing new activities such as online sales of handicrafts using nearby wood. Despite the corona disaster, new stores has also opened. They are stores selling pudding in a small cafe in a warehouse. Until now, there has been a focus on Japanese style and what looks appropriate for Shirakawa-go. However, the new store is not bound by tradition, but focusing on taste and local ingredients. I also ate them and it was very delicious. A new industry came to Shirakawa village in 2020. It is pig farming. It is located 10 minutes away from the World Heritage Area by car. A pig farm has been established in a village where no one lives anymore. The delicious water and rice of Shirakawa village produce pork with a light flavor. It is sold under the brand name Yui Umabuda. As is the trend throughout Japan, Corona has expanded the popularity of outdoor activities, because of less susceptible to infection. A young man came back to village, became the manager of a campground, located 15 minutes by car from the World Heritage Area in Shirakawa village. He renewed the site and used social networking to attract many visitors. I will conclude my presentation. Tetsuya Ozaki, who is an executive director of Residents Organization and also a village officer, says following. Before Corona, they were only busy dealing with the 2 million tourists, half of whom were foreign visitors to Japan and could only see what was in front of them. In Shirakawa-go, I think that young people are now able to look at local issues from a bird's eye view. When people re-evaluated their busy urban lives, the advantages of a village with low population density, rich nature, and strong relationships among people became apparent. Here are some final words from a person who has moved to Shirakawa-go with her family. It is very good that everyone in the village looks out for you. Even if it is not their own child, they will scold you if you do something wrong. It is important to protect what Shirakawa village values, such as Gasho-style houses and the spirit of Yui mutual cooperation. I hope we can change while protecting. This is a temple called Myasunji in the village. The traditional way of thatching roof by residents' mutual cooperation called Yui is scheduled for May of this year. It's been 3 years since last time. Please come and visit Shirakawa-go. Thank you for your attention.